Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about how to manage projects with inside Monday.com. I'm really happy that you guys are all here with us. And today, we're going to focus on 3 different ways to manage projects within Monday.com. So let's jump in. Okay, so just quickly, I'm going to start with the agenda. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about me, about my company, what we do. We're going to talk a little bit about what you need for projects. Then, like I said, 3 different ways to actually manage projects. This is going to be very hands-on, very practical ways that you can set up Monday to actually manage the projects. One important difference is going to be if you're working on the pro plan versus the enterprise plan within Monday. So we're going to talk about the differences between those. 2 of the ways that I'm going to show you how you can manage these projects are going to be if you're on the pro plan, you obviously can do it on the enterprise plan, but they're more focused on the pro plan. And the last way is on the enterprise plan. It's actually brand new features. I listened to a webinar about it this morning. It did come out in the last few weeks, but I listened to a webinar on it this morning. So I'm really excited to share all these features with you because they're really, really new to Monday. And I think that they're just great features to know about because it really takes project management to the next level within Monday. And within each of these 3 different setups that I'm going to show you, we're going to talk about how to manage your boards, obviously managing projects. We're going to talk about how to manage dashboards and also resource management, because we all know that anytime you're actually managing a project, it's also important to understand like who's part of that project, what they're doing, and to understand where your resources are located in terms of your employees. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to jump into any questions that anyone has. In the middle of the presentation, if anyone has a question, feel free to write it in the questions and answers, and we can take a break and answer your questions. So again, thank you so much for joining, and let's jump in. So just a little bit about me before we get started. My name's Tara. I'm the founder of a company called Simple Day. We started about 3 years ago, and our goal is to help companies implement Monday.com. We also offer templates, online courses, and custom implementations for building out your Monday instance. So if you have any questions or would like to get in touch, Rosa will post our email address, and we'd love to hear from you. And I basically have been using Monday since 2015, so became totally obsessed with it and decided to open up Simple Day because I simply wanted to work with Monday all the time. Just thought it was a great tool, so that's how we got started. So far, we've worked with close to 300 clients all over the world, all different kinds of implementations. And I found over time, it doesn't really matter what your vertical is. A lot of things are very similar within Monday. So what we're going to talk about specifically today, projects. I do believe that a lot of projects are very similar. Obviously, there's differences depending on the vertical and what you need to do specifically in the project. But I also think that there's a lot of similarities, and you can easily take ideas from what we're gonna cover today for your projects. So when we talk about projects, there's a few things that we need to think about before we actually dive into like how to build this in Monday. The first thing that you really need to think about is what needs to be tracked. Like, what are you tracking within Monday.com? What information is important about your project? Normally, it's the status of a project, the timelines, maybe planned timeline versus actual, which people are working on it. Whatever information you need to track, it's really important that you think about that before, because the way you build out your boards and your process is going to be dependent on what information actually needs to be tracked. The next thing that you need to think about and understand about your business is how many projects are we actually tracking? I've worked with clients that have like 300 projects, and then some clients have 12 projects or 3 projects. And this is going to be a crucial difference, by the way, for the enterprise versus pro, which we're going to get into soon. But it's really important to understand how many projects you're tracking. And obviously, every company hopefully grows, and you need to keep in mind, like, what's your plan for growth? Because we don't want your setup to work for now, but then, in 5 minutes when your company grows, hopefully, it's not going to work. The last thing that you really need to think about is when you're managing or setting up a project is who needs to see what within the project. Because many times we have project managers or more of like an executive level, like a board level, or let's say the CEO, CFO, whoever, and they really need to see like the high level of the projects, maybe how many projects, the status, maybe certain projects that are having issues. But they need to see like very high level dashboards. But then when you go down to, let's say, a project manager or someone that's on the specific team managing a project, they need to see other things. So it's really important to keep both of these roles in mind as you're setting up these projects within Monday, because it's really important that everyone has access to view the information that they need to see. Like if you set up boards and like high level, let's say your CEO can see the details of the projects, great. But if your project managers can't actually use the boards, like then you haven't really accomplished anything. So it's really important to think about who the different people are that need to access your projects and what they need to see. Sorry, I went backwards. Okay. So before we jump into the three different options, I want to just take a minute to talk about Pro versus Enterprise. Now, as you may know, Monday.com has different plans. They have different products, but they also have different plans. We're talking specifically within work management, which is basically where you manage projects. And they have different plans. They have Pro versus Enterprise. Obviously, there's a lot of different features between all of them. I'm not going to discuss them today, the different features. Happy to, we have a link to it. We could send you a YouTube video about that. But when you think about projects within the context of which plan of Monday.com you need, you really need to understand how many projects you have, because there are limitations within Pro that are different from the enterprise plan. So just to explain them, one of the setups that we're going to be talking about is a high level, low level setup. And what that means is you have like a high level board, you have like one board, and then you have boards under it that are low level boards. Okay. So like each board would be a project. And then your high level board is like a summary of all your projects. Now, if you're on the Pro version, you only can connect 20 low-level projects to one high-level project. So that's something that's like really important to take into account, because if you have 25 projects that you need, then Pro may not work for you, because you can't then have one dashboard for all of your projects to see a summary. You can't have all of your projects connect to the high level. So this is like a thing where so many people get stuck on, because they have so many boards per project, and they want to be able to divide it a board per project, but then they want that high level view and they can't have it because of this connections limit. So on Pro, like I said, you have 20 boards to one high level board. You also have 10 boards to one dashboard. Again, another limit just to be aware of. On enterprise, now, if you would do this kind of setup, you do have a 60 board limit, but I'm going to show you a totally new setup, a new feature called portfolio feature, which right now you actually have a 200 board limit. And what they said on the call this morning, they're going to 1,000 boards, potentially even more. So, again, depending on the size of your company, you may need to go that route. So it's really important just to understand the importance of Pro versus enterprise in terms of the connections. The next thing that's really important is that enterprise has this new feature, which I said we're going to talk about. It's called a portfolio feature. This is like the direction that Monday is going in. Like they are building out this feature and they're pushing it really, really hard. Like I told you, I saw the webinar on it today. There's some amazing, amazing features that are unique to this enterprise feature. I think it's called Work Management for Enterprise, maybe. I don't remember the exact name. But there's a lot of things that they're building out that are part of this portfolio management, which is essentially managing projects. So it's important to understand the different things that you can manage with portfolio, and then you can make a decision. Is Pro right for you, or is Enterprise right for you? Like both of them work. I would say a lot of my clients are on the Pro plan, and then a lot are on Enterprise. I just want to make it clear, like you don't have to go to Enterprise, but this new way to manage projects is really built to scale for large projects, and has a really lot of cool features. So, just something to keep in mind as you decide how you want to set up your boards to build out your projects. Sorry, went the wrong Okay, you saw my presentation. We're done. Okay, so we're going to start on the Pro version, and here we're going to talk about two different ways to build out projects on the Pro version. One is with this high level, low level boards. One is with sub items. And then we're going to talk about dashboard, the connection amounts, which I already mentioned, and resource management. So we are going to start with that. Give me 1 second. Let me just share my screen, my other screen. Okay, can everyone see my Monday boards? Yeah, thumbs up. Anyone? Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. I'm actually going to start here. Okay. So the first method of setting up projects is this method that they call high level, low level boards within Monday.com. What that means is that you have a high level board, and you can see here I have a high level board that has my projects. You can see my open projects and my completed projects. Actually, I'm just going to move this. Can you guys still see this? Just tell me that you could still see it. Just because I moved it. Yeah? Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay. So you can see the high level projects here. You can see that we have 5 projects. 3 of them are in progress and 5 of them are still and 2 of them are completed. We have a person assigned to them, a status. This is a very, very basic board. I really didn't build it out because I didn't want you guys to get confused about, all the different columns and all the different options. This is just a really basic board to show you the concept of high level, low level. So here we have this high level board, which talks about projects. Now, we also have a low level board. And the purpose of the low level board is to show you the actual tasks that are associated with a project. So you can see here, I have some tasks listed out. Again, a very simple board. You can see I have some tasks here and some completed tasks here, different statuses, a date. But what's really important here is that it's connected to the high level board. This is a connected board column to the high level board. And you could see like task 1 is associated with project 1. Task 2 is associated with also project 1. If I go to task 13, associated with project 12. Now, what we're doing over here, which is really cool, is we have progress tracking. On this board, it means very little because on this board, it's either saying it's 0% complete or 100% complete. It's not really giving us that much data. However, when we go to the high level board, this is where we pull all of the data together. So, for example, I'm just going to wait. It's going to load. These columns haven't loaded yet. But here, now they are. Now you could see like project 1, there's 4 tasks associated with it, and we're only 25% of the way complete. Project 2, there's also 4 tasks associated, and we're 50% of the way complete. So having a high level board and a low level board, especially with this progress column, I personally think it's like a great column, gives you the insight to manage projects on a high level, because here you could see high level overview, who's working on it, what's the timeline, what's the progress, like where are you up to in the project, but you're not seeing every single detail. That is meant for the low level board where you see all of the details of each project. Now, this setup, this high level board, low level board, allows you to also have a dashboard. Now, remember, I only have 2 boards. So in terms of I called it the Pro dashboard because this is if you're on the Pro account. So here you have a Pro dashboard. We're connected to 2 boards, and you can see, I just put up some dashboards, the status of all of our tasks, how many projects by person. And here we have a workload widget. Now, this is a great widget. This is a feature that's actually been really, really improved upon when we get to the enterprise version. But basically what this tells us is that you can have each person, how many tasks, and you could set the settings. I honestly didn't play with all the settings, but how many tasks they have, and then you could decide, what they have per month. Per week. Is it based on a number of tasks? Is it based on hours? And if, let's say, Rosa was over her quota, so then this would turn red. And here you can see based on the visual, how close you are to being a full blue bubble, like here, blue circle. And that's showing you how close you are to reaching your capacity. So this is a way to manage your capacity. Again, the really important thing is that we have 1 low level board and 1 high level board that are connected with a connected board column. Now, imagine that you wanted to have 1 high level board, right? And then you had 20 low-level boards. So you can connect all the low-level boards to this high-level board, but you wouldn't be able to connect it to the dashboard because you're going to run into connection limits. You can only have 10 boards connected. So this is like an example of where this connection limits comes into play. You can build a board off the high-level board if you want. It won't be a separate dashboard, and then you will solve that problem. I really want to stress, like, I'm not pushing anyone to enterprise specifically. I just think so many people set this up and they're not aware of these limits, and then they have to like go back to the drawing board and rebuild all of their boards. So it's just really important that you understand what the limits are. Any questions so far on option number one of the high level, low level boards? Okay, so we will continue with option two. So I am going to option two, I am going to go back to my low level board, and it's really going to be the same concept that we had before of this high level, low level, but instead of doing it on two boards, we're actually doing it on one board. So you can see here, I have an example of an item level, which is task. Now I'm actually going to change this. And for this example, it's going to be called projects number one. Okay, and then you can see that I have all my tasks below it. So in one board, we're doing the same thing that we did before. We have all of our projects here, and then we have all of our tasks as sub items. And we have the same progress tracking, which I think is amazing. And you can see that it rolls up over here. Now, as soon as I would mark this, let's say as done, you can see here it's going to change it to 100%. Again, if I would change something to not started, it would change it back to 67%. So this is the exact same concept, but it's all managed within one board. I would say that this is really good for smaller projects where you don't have a million tasks. Like if you have like 20, 30 tasks per project, it's borderline. If you have 50, 60 tasks, it's going to be very hard to manage this. But for a lot of teams, they're like, look, we want something really, really simple and really easy. And here, I love that you have the visual. Like it's so clear to me visually, like this is the project and then this is everything associated with it. You don't really have that. Like when you go to this high level board for like option one, you don't really have that. Yes, I see the tasks, like a number that's here, but I don't see the actual tasks. You lose that visual when you go to the high level, low level board option. So for some companies, having this sub item option is a really great way for them to manage projects. So, and again, if you're doing it this way, then you can just build a dashboard here. You have everything in the dashboard, you have everything in one place, and it makes it much simpler. So those are the two different ways that you can manage projects when you're using the pro plan on Monday. We spoke about the dashboard, the connection limit, and the resource management is done in the dashboard with the workload widget. Pretty straightforward. I think the thing, just as like a point that most people get stuck on, is they really get stuck on how to do the connected board column. So I definitely recommend, if you're having trouble with that, to take some time to understand that. It is something that's very confusing for people, and they do get stuck there a lot. Now, one of an advantage of the enterprise level is it automatically does a lot of those connections. So we're going to jump to the enterprise level so that way you can see what you can do on the enterprise level. So here you should now be able to see my other screen. Just check. Okay. So here we're just going to talk about enterprise. Okay, sorry. Here we're going to talk about the new enterprise features of work management. So we have a portfolio view and projects, which we're going to jump into, and I'll explain it. We also have dashboards, and there is a whole new resource management setup where you can actually manage all of your resources. So we're going to jump into all of that, and I'm going to show you exactly how they work. So, okay, just 1 second. I just have to get the boards. Okay. So if you start here, see this folder over here, this is called Enterprise Project Management. There's a few different kinds of boards, and I just want to show you the different kinds of boards that are associated with this, and then I'm going to jump in and show you how it works. So the first is a portfolio. Sorry, let me start with our use case. What we're doing here is I'm showing you how you can use the new enterprise work management portfolio feature with the example of a website development company. So imagine a website development company that they develop a lot of websites. And because developing websites is really complicated, they want each project to be a different board. Okay, so we want to have a different board per project. And then we want to understand on a high level overview the capacity of the team. We want to understand where each project is holding, what projects are maybe at risk, what projects are on track, timelines, what tasks people have, and a lot of different things so that way we can manage a lot of projects. So we start here with our website portfolio. And if you look on this board, this is basically your high-level board. We just spoke about a high-level board that you can see all of your projects. Once this finishes to load, this is essentially a high-level board. Okay, so it looks very similar to a regular board. You can see that I have my different projects. In this case, these are the 3 different websites that I'm building. You still have an owner. Now, something new for this is you have something called the project health, and we'll get into why this is important in the dashboards. But here on a big picture, you can see the project health. These columns over here with a green line under them are part of the project board. So all of these, see this little icon here? We have 3 different project boards, and you can see here the 3 different project boards. Each project board is connected to this high-level board, and all of the data is pulled in. We can customize these columns as much as we want. You can add columns the same way you could do it for a regular board. You can customize and add things here. Okay, but instead of building a regular board, we're building a project board. So I'm actually just going to add a new project because I just want to show you how easy it is. You can have a project template if you want. For this example, I'm not going to have a project template, and I'll just call this SD website. And I can decide, here's like my template. If I want to choose my different templates, I can. Again, I can choose if it's main or private, and I can hit continue. Now, this is going to be like the project plan. And then we have this new thing called resource planner, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes. So I'm creating another project. And this is where some of the magic happens. We have templates from before, which you all know about, but you can see that it's automatically connected to my high level, on my high level portfolio board, which is really nice. But what it does in the back end is it also automatically connects to my low level, like the individual project board. So you can see if you scroll down here I have a new folder for the SD website, and I have 2 boards in it. I have the SD website, which is the actual project board. I don't know why it's going so slow. Okay, so here you could see this is a basic board. I obviously didn't do anything to it. But you can see here that there's this connected board column to the portfolio, So this is automatically set up, and that's like one of the biggest things that that we always try and automate, and it's very hard to automate. So there's this, I think to me is like such a big deal that as soon as I automatically, let's say, add a new task to this board, it's automatically connected. See it automatically connected to that portfolio board. So no matter what you're adding, you don't need to like make sure that everything was connected. Like this to me is like a big deal. And I think it's a great feature that they're all automatically connected. Now let's look at some other features that this board has that's unique to manage projects. Most of the columns are the same. I'm not going to go through them because they're very similar to the other columns. The first thing that you have is you have this project health. And I do know that Monday's plans are eventually they're going to, I think, like use some kind of AI tools within Monday based on the statuses and the deadlines to decide, like you're going to decide like where is the project holding. Let's just say for this, I will mark this as on track. Now, if we go back up to our portfolio, so here you can see this is the new website. I marked it as on track. It shows up here. Now, the cool part about this is it's true that you can look at this view and you have a regular view and you'll have it. Now, Imagine if you had like 30 projects. So again, you need to scroll, which is not great. But what Monday added is this snapshot view. And this I think is great. This snapshot view is basically like a dashboard, but it shows you the different categories of your project. So here we have one project off track, one at risk, and two on track. Now within this, you can also see like this is 33% of the way completed. This is 25%. You can see plan time versus actual, like where you're holding in terms of that. I didn't assign projects managers, but you can, I don't think any of them have. But you can also see that information. So there's really a lot of different information that you can see from this view. So just think of that like your managers, like who's ever managing all these projects or someone on the executive team, like they could just come in here and be like, oh, great. Two projects are good. One's at risk. Maybe let's try and understand where it's at risk, why, so we can get it back on track. And one's really, really at risk. It's off track. So let's try and understand where that is. And that is something, this view, I think is something that's really, really a great feature to view all of your projects. Now, the next part that you have is when we built this, remember we built this SD website. So we also built this resource planner. And this is also something that's totally new to Monday. As you can see, I didn't set this up because we built it together, but this is a really, really cool new feature. So it's based on the idea of the workload widget, but you can use this for planning. So you can use this either for actual planning specific people or just for planning your project. So I can add a resource. Now I can specifically add a person. Let's just say I'm going to add my person, but I can also add a placeholder. So let's say I want to say, I need a project manager for this. And I need another placeholder is I need a developer. And another placeholder is I need a designer. Okay. Then I can say, let's say I need 4 hours a day, or I can give a total over my timeline. And here you could see like I have 4 hours a day. Let's say for the developer, let's say I want them here 8 hours a day for these few weeks of my project. Let's say for me, I'm going to do it I don't know, let's say I'll do it 6 hours a day over those 2 weeks. So here you can see per project, I have like either the planned or the actual person, okay, which is just really cool. Now, the way that this is built is you have a resource directory and you can go into your resource directory, like here's everyone on my team, and you can assign them to teams, add skills, add location, and you can add job titles for them. So it's just a really, in my mind, like when you want to plan a project, like you're like, well, we need a designer, but we don't necessarily have a designer. So here you have the ability to figure out what you need per project. Now you have one of these boards. You can see each of the boards has a resource planner. So here, like Pro and Class, Saida, Simple Day, everyone has a resource planner. But then like the amazing part of this, which I think is really cool, is then there's a capacity manager. Okay. So what the capacity manager does is it actually pulls in the information from all of the different boards that are connected. You could see that and again, I didn't do any of this manually. Like I did set up some of these boards before this webinar, but this was all done like automatically as soon as I created the portfolio, which is just really cool. And then I have different views. I could view by person. So here you could see like how busy I am over these days. You can view it by project. Again, you can do hours per day, hours per week. There's like a lot of things that you can come in here and you can see what how everything's going. Now let's just say I realize I have too much. So like I actually can just move, like I can move something over. Okay, that's also too much. Like, okay, so now let's move me here. And now all of a sudden, wow, Tara has time in her schedule because, okay, maybe not this week, but once we move this, once we move this project over, we can see, okay, now this is a workload that's manageable. And this is for all of your projects. So if you have more than 20 projects, you can do that. It's going to be actually probably 10, but you'll be able to do this to manage your resources. And this is such an important point. It doesn't matter if you have freelancers or if you have people on your team, you need to understand like what projects they're working on, when are they busy, when are they free. Now, the other really nice feature that this has is that there's this automatic dashboard. Again, this was automatically created. Like I didn't really do anything. I like clicked a button, create the dashboard. This is just the default. So if you want to update it, change it, you can. But again, we have this dashboard that was automatically created, like completed tasks, overdue, incomplete. I'm just looking what they have here, like plans versus effort, project status. Here you have a Gantt chart. Here's, sorry, project milestones. You can have a Gantt chart. There's so much information this is all like automatically built for you. Like I think setting all this up probably took me like 20 minutes. And I know, okay, I know it, I'm in Monday all day, but the point is that there's so many features that are right here for you that you can access to build out the way to manage these projects. I also saw something that I didn't have time to delve into, but there's also, you can have Gantt charts, and when things are delayed, like then it actually, like the task turns red, which is kind of cool because then you know that it's it's a conflict with something else, and then you need to move it. And the other thing which I didn't pull into today's session is they also have a risk analysis. It's all based on AI. And it basically like will look at your projects and it will create a report for you saying like these are, and it will read like the conversations and all of the updates on the board and say like, okay, we think that these projects are at risk or these are not. And it gives you data so that way you can do something about your project to make sure that all of your projects are moving quickly and how they should. So overall, just to summarize, this new enterprise feature for portfolios is high level. All of your boards up until now, you can have 200 boards, and I know they're looking to get towards 1,000, but you can manage right now 200 projects and see them from a high level, see the risk, see what projects are on track, what's not, what percentage completed. You could see all that information, and then you have all the low level boards where you have all of the tasks, you can get insights about it, and then you have this capacity management. Like that's something that I hear people complain about all the time, that they need a way to manage capacity over a large number of projects. And that's something that you really have with this feature. So overall, those are 3 different ways that you can set up your project management within Monday.com. I think these different ways are good for different team sizes, depending on what you do, how you run your company. But I definitely recommend looking into these and kind of figuring out like what's the right setup for you based on your company. So, again, setting up Monday takes time, and it's not something that, that can be done right away. And you really need to understand what your goals are, what your workflows are, and what you need to do. But these are just 3 different ways that you can manage your projects. And I think that it's something that I hope is very helpful for everyone. I do want to, before I take some questions, I do want to just share with you a special offer that we have today. If you are looking for some help with your Monday boards and kind of need like an audit or some suggestions about what's going on, we will send out an email with a free 30-minute session to reach out and to have an audit with me. And I would be happy to sit with you and understand where your pain points are, where you need help, and just give you some guidance in terms of how you can set up your projects or even just setting up Monday in general. So I encourage you to sign up, and I would love to meet with you all personally. And on that note, I want to thank everyone for joining. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take any questions about anything we spoke about today. Okay, anyone? Okay, I see there was one posted here. What is the difference between using sub items and creating a specific task, and when should we use each? When should we use each one? So creating items is really putting things on like a higher level, and then you have that visual cue that things that are sub items. I will say that I personally don't love using sub items all the time because there's not as many automations on sub items. It is something that Monday's developing, but there's not as many sub items as there should be. So I can't tell you when you should use them and when you can't, but I do think thinking about the people on your team, it's going to be easier to work in one board, or you have tasks that have a lot of different parts that you need to track a lot of different parts, then I would recommend looking into sub items. If you need a lot of automations based on each item, then you probably need to do it on an item level. So that's what I would say about that. Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, I'll just say thank you so much for joining me. Again, it was really a pleasure to meet everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And we did post a link to my YouTube channel. If you have any other, things that you're looking to learn, feel free to check that out. And I look forward to, if you guys want to sign up for the audit, I'm really looking forward to meeting you. Thank you again and have a great day. Bye.
Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and remember to subscribe to receive tips and tricks on how to use Monday.com. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.